Hi, everyone. Good afternoon and happy Friday. Thank you all so much for joining me. I am excited about this topic that we're going to be discussing and engaging in just a few moments. So, thank you for tuning in. If you haven't done so, can you please do me a favor and tag someone, share the broadcast. We want to be a blessing to someone today. You know, so much is going on in the world today, and I think it is really derelict for leaders in their duty to not really address, the impending stress and strain that people may be under with regard to all of this stuff that's going on. So I really appreciate you all joining me today, and I promise you, you've done a great thing, and you're going to be investing in yourself and in your well-being. In just a few moments, I'm going to bring in our guest, and I'm excited to have this young person today with me on the broadcast. So I want you to share it, and in particularly tag a man, because when we talk about mental health, oftentimes men think that men are used to being strong and they think it doesn't apply to them. But we're going to talk about all aspects of that first. So let me say hi to a couple of people who are saying hi, Pastor T. Hi, everyone. Hi, Tawana, and hi, Kim. Thank you all for your support and for joining in. I miss everybody too. Can't wait for us to get back to whatever our new norm is going to be, where we can actually love upon each other in person. So let me give a few announcements. This is our very first pop-up event of the summer. We're planning some more stuff. Hey, Sasha, we're planning some more stuff. This is the very first one. Excited about it. So tag, share, post. I want to remind you about Sunday service. I am starting a new series this Sunday called Back to Basics. The church has left the building, but we're going back to the basics. You want to be tuned in Sunday at 10 o'clock. I am so excited. Hey, Dean Bradley. And then obviously people are always asking, because you all are such generous people, if you're giving today, they are putting that information on the screen for you at this time. There are multiple ways that you can give, but please remember that you want to make sure that you give, or you write your checks out if you're mailing anything into Lift City Church. We are Lift City Church, where we love unconditionally, lead passionately, and lift intentionally. And this is part of what we do right now: love, lead, and lifting people into the next phase of their lives. So I don't want to belabor the time. I want to give a brief introduction of this young lady. Her name is Ivy Sias, and Ivy is the owner of Ivy Counseling and Wellness Services, LLC, which was established to assist people with planting seeds of insight. I like that encourage individuals and collective groups and self-awareness, which leads to life changes that flourish from inside out. Now, you know, she talking my language. So it's all about creating the life that you want to live. And so Ivy is also a national certified counselor. She's a licensed professional and counselor supervisor. So in short, the girl has the goods. She knows what she's talking about. And when she comes up on the screen in just a moment, you're going to see all of her degrees and the PP and what all of that is. You know, long story short, she just knows what she's talking about. So you tuned in today at a good time. So we're going to bring Ivy in at this time. Hi, Ivy.
Hi.
We are live.
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am doing well. Again, we are excited to have you. I read just briefly a little bit of your bio, but I think it's a good place for us to start with. Why don't you tell us a little bit more about yourself and tell us why it is that you do what you do? Let's set the stage for where we're going here today.
Okay. So I am, as you stated, I'm a nationally board certified counselor, a licensed professional counselor and supervisor, and I'm certified in perinatal mental health, which encompasses all things related to maternal mental health. So that's where you would touch on things like postpartum depression and things like that. I've been practicing for about 10 years, direct counseling, but I have a strong mental health background. And I really just got into this because I've always been a helper. I always wanted to help people, connect to people. A lot of people, when I was younger, would seek advice from me and come to me with their things and different perspectives of ways to looking at it. And I felt like this was the best way for me to do it, and then as well as like my calling, which I feel like fully developed when I went into private practice in 2017, after my own experience with postpartum depression and anxiety. So that is not a specialty that is really popular. And so it was difficult to find resources for me, even as a therapist. And so then I decided and was led to become the resource in our community. And so that has been a beautiful experience to be able to provide those resources that I myself couldn't find at the time.
That's so awesome. You hit on so many points that I would like for us to delve into today. I just wanted to note that Ivy is a new, not necessarily a newbie. I think you've been here about 8 years, you said, in Louisiana?
I've been here 9.5, actually.
9.5 years. So you and I actually, I'm born and raised here, and I actually came back about 9.5 years ago. So you and I pretty much landed here in Louisiana at the same time, but you're actually from the Los Angeles area. And
That's
so
right.
I just wanted to mention that because, we want to make sure that Ivy knows we love you here in Louisiana and the South.
Right. Yes. Originally, I'm a Compton native, and I was born and raised in the Los Angeles, California area. So yes.
Awesome. And so you again mentioned so many things in there that I so many points of interest that I think is important to talk about. One of the things you said that you were, or you are, or you've been doing this for a long time, and it was like a calling. And I think that that's so important because it's kind of like when you find your calling, you find your niche in life. And then you talked about you had some experience with the things you actually provide therapy in. And so if you can talk about your own personal experience and your own discovery process of understanding the importance of therapy and what it can do for your life.
Right. So, as far as therapy is concerned, my dad is a psychiatric nurse. Well, he's retired now, but he was a psychiatric nurse for the VA. So, and my stepmother also worked in that same hospital. So, as far as being in touch with like mental health in that way, I feel like that was always a part of something I was exposed to, even though we didn't discuss it a lot in our own homes because, and I know we'll touch on this some, but, it was a little bit different when it was us in our house, but, they felt the need to reach out and be connected. And then fast forward, my college experience, they offer free counseling on most campuses. So I sought that just to kind of figure things out and figure out what I want to do in life. And I had an amazing counselor, a therapist there, and she really helped me work through some things that I was trying to figure out and find my way and find my footing. But she also made the counseling environment. She was an African American woman as well, and she made the counseling environment so warm and welcoming that I was like, I want to do that. Like, oh my gosh,
intimidating to you.
Right. And at the time, California is very diverse. So even though there's this sense of diversity, I feel like there was this missing piece of seeing people that look like me that were actually therapists and psychologists and LCSWs and counselors and things like that. So to actually see her and she was younger and, kind of in tune, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. So I connected with her.
So African American people actually do get counseling?
Yes.
Because that's
shocking, right?
Shockingly, because in our community, it is as if this is some newfound, actually, I think it's a newfound revelation, but also an understanding of it's actually okay.
Right.
So can you talk about that a little bit in your experience? Like, what do you think has led to or tends to lead to us as a community in particularly, we know that it's relative to men and to African Americans, like it's a stigma about getting therapy, talking to someone. Can you talk about that a little bit?
For sure. So one of the things I think that we have to be aware of is like the history of like systematic oppression, racism, discrimination, and then the persistent trauma within our community. and that leading to us not trusting people in the healthcare system,
Wow.
right? So we haven't had a really great history of like going to medical professionals and feeling like we're getting the services that we need, or without specific kinds of judgments and assumptions about who we are as people and things like that. And so those things are very important for us to take into consideration about why there's this stigma. There's also a really big history about us being like very private about things, you know, what goes on in our house stays in our house, that kind of mentality, that I feel like we've passed from generation to generation. And a lot of that is based in what I previously mentioned. And then some of it is just, you know, this feeling of like we need to dismiss our own struggles and our own experiences in order to just make it through, not being real about our experiences. But what that does is that creates the tone that it's not okay to discuss it. So if I'm having an issue and no one in my family, no one around me that I know in my community discusses problems in that way, then where do I go? I feel like it's something abnormal. And then I feel like I'm broken and I don't know what to do because no one else provided those resources. The other thing is,
what happens to a person internally, emotion-wise, community-wise, relationship-wise, when we just keep bottling everything inside and we don't talk about what we're experiencing as a result of some of the systematic things that we've experienced, but also as a result of it being like a disdain or, you know, like something's wrong with you if you without therapy or counseling. What happens to you as a person when you don't address those things?
I mean, I think it surfaces in one way or another.
Okay.
It may come out in like irritability, being short fused, being really easily frustrated about things. A lot of people have just this consistent feeling of being like overwhelmed.
Okay.
A lot of people have issues that are somatic, which means that like it comes up physically. So like you have these illnesses that pop up because your body is just trying to get rid of things that you're pushing down. Difficulty with sleep, all kinds of things, crying spells, persistent feelings of sadness. But then of course you still don't have these outlets. So you're just kind of fighting it yourself as best you can. I always say you can't function fully.
You got to get that stuff out.
Right.
So I think for the people who are viewing and those who will view, you know, it online in the future, it's important, I think, to note that what you're saying is that just like when we eat natural food, we eliminate because certain parts of the food are toxic to our systems. Our body eliminates it. I think what I hear you saying is when we take in so much stuff in our personal lives, in our world, things that people are dealing with, we'll talk about that specifically in a little bit. But when we talk about those things and we're taking in all this stuff, she just listed a myriad of ways that you can identify that I may be dealing with some stuff that I need to talk about. You talk about feeling ill physically. You talk about crying for no reason, not wanting to be bothered, being irritable. All those things are signs that something is wrong and you probably need to talk to somebody.
Right. Absolutely. It will come out in some ways. And then what happens, I think, too, in our community is the ways that it comes out resembles other family members. So it may come out in nervousness and anxiousness.
Pause that, Ivy. I thought that was really like, that was revelatory for me. Say that again. The things that come out may be like what in other family members?
It may be something that you see in your other family members. So it may resemble their behavior. And then we write it off as like, oh, well, that's how it is in our family. You know, everybody in our family got an attitude. Everybody in our family,
girl, you
struggles with this or that. Everybody in our family, it becomes the norm instead of something that we look and seek solutions for.
That's so powerful, all of what you said, because we function in what appears to be normal to us until we get an outside view and realize it's not normal. So if for that reason alone, a lot of times we think that what we're doing is right and how we're responding and functioning in life is right, just is because the way that we learn to do it.
Right.
you know, they're clapping hands on here because you hit
Yeah.
something with that. They're like, because
Yeah.
when I teach a lot of times, I say just because you've been doing it this way don't mean it's the right way to do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And if you didn't see anything else, so like what you see is like, oh, this is how we handle things. We
Yeah,
don't have any other way to do it because this is how we handle things as a family, as a culture.
yeah.
This is what we do. This is what is acceptable. And so then it becomes just almost a sign of like, this is, we proud of it. You know,
Wow.
like I'm struggling, I'm not getting help, I'm not doing all this because I can do it on my own. I don't need no help, I don't need anything. And then it becomes like a almost a badge of honor.
You took the words right out of my mouth. Our struggles and our inability to successfully and correctly deal with things becomes our pride and our badge of honor because I can handle it. And the part that we don't see is like a silent killer. It's silently
Absolutely.
destroying us.
Absolutely. Because again, we then pass that down to our children. You know,
That
we
part.
talk about like, you know, back in the day, grandma had bad nerves. Grandma probably had anxiety. And she probably needed help. But
Right.
you know, oh well, if she could do it, you know, then I'm not as strong as grandma if I don't do it on my own. If I seek help, I'm not as strong as she is.
Right. And then we do that comparison thing. And I always tell my kids, I taught them this for forever. And we're all guilty of it. We just have to be conscious that we don't operate in it.
Right.
You know, comparison is the enemy to progression.
Absolutely.
It's kind of like you'll never progress past what you're accustomed to doing if you're comparing yourself to other people in your family or other people in the community. And this is the way you handle it. I think one of the most important things that you said was that in our community, and it's really important for us, especially at this time, to speak to our community because our community has this awakening of the oppression and the results of the oppression. Really, it's been there. We're just awakened to it at a different level because of media and stuff. And so I really want you, before we shift gears to women dealing with postpartum and things like that, because there's some young women on here as well, I really want to shift to what's going on in our world. We have had constant after constant after constant. So we start dealing with a pandemic where everything in your world shifts.
Yes.
Which you are accustomed to. Then we start dealing with the fallout from the pandemic, which are, you know, sickness and death and job loss. And then we start dealing with, now we're dealing with the heightened awareness of racial oppression and where this nation is. It's not where people thought it was because we had an African-American president, and then this is a lot that people have dealt with in a very short period of time.
Right. Absolutely.
To some of the things that people will probably be noticing in their emotions, in their lives, and some of the things that they can do to help them to function better during this time.
Right. So a lot of what people will notice is probably this sense of like hypervigilance. We're in a state where we're worried about the coronavirus and if we're making the right choices regarding our health and our safety and the safety of our family and others. We're hypervigilant about police brutality and racism and other things like that. And so you might be experiencing this sense of like, and the one thing I want to say is rightfully so. So a lot of people are like, oh, I feel this way and it doesn't make sense, but it does.
Gotcha.
The way that you're feeling, the way that you feel, you might feel unmotivated. You might lack interest in things that you once, you know, have had interest in. You might be, like I said before, irritable, sleep difficulties. You might have some physical symptoms. You might have like feelings of just being overwhelmed and just tired, like exhaustion.
Okay.
And that's because that exhaustion comes from all the stuff you're carrying. Like people will be like, I've been in the house all day. Why am I so tired? Well, you've been on the house all day, but you've been on Facebook all day. Or you've been in the house all day and every conversation you've had has stemmed about either the coronavirus or these racial inequalities and police brutality, or maybe you watched a video or what have you. And I think it's us being really aware of that and then not dismissing our own feelings. So there's a reason you feel that way. It's because we're in a pandemic and we're dealing with all these racial injustices, and we have now had the time to slow down and actually pay attention to the racial injustice. It's not new.
Right.
It's something that now coronavirus has put us in a space where we have to deal with it. We have to deal with it. It's right there in our face, and we don't have all these other distractions.
So
anymore.
Dealing with it is not pretending that it doesn't exist.
Right. Don't pretend that it doesn't exist. You deal with it and you work through it in healthy ways. One of the things I say is like recognize your triggers. So that may look different for everybody.
Recognize your triggers. I want them to put that in the chat. Recognize your triggers. Okay.
And that may look different for everybody. For me, I have to monitor how much social media or media in general I'm taking in, like watching the news, or do you really need to watch the videos about what's happening, or do you need to just read the story because you want to be in the know? Right. Like setting those kinds of things and paying attention to how your body responds, how you respond emotionally to that.
Right.
When you're interacting with people, are you exhausted afterwards?
Do people make you tired?
People make you tired. You shouldn't walk away feeling like I need a nap.
Yeah, that is so good, because that is really being able to identify toxic people in your life. If you're just pouring out when you're around some people, you probably should try to figure out how to navigate away from that crowd.
Right. And then that, you know, I always say like boundaries, setting boundaries with yourself and others. So setting boundaries with yourself.
Boundaries, that's another one. I want to make sure they put it in the text. Setting boundaries. Okay.
Setting boundaries with yourself may look like I said, limiting your social media, recognizing things that that really make you upset and not engaging. Right. Or not continuing to engage. It's okay to say like, you know what? This is something that I can't continue to do.
Can I give you an example of something I recently experienced? When this whole thing went down with the George Floyd thing, I believe it was one of my kids that sent me the video. And I think they sent it probably to me in direct message me in Instagram to see the video. And I saw just a picture, how you can just see the picture before you play the video. And I saw the police officer and a black guy on the ground. And I tell you what, I didn't even open it because I was able to acknowledge in that moment, okay, this is another one.
Right.
And I still to this day never seen the video because immediately I felt my heart racing and I felt tears come into my eyes. And then I felt anger like I had never felt before.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about is protecting yourself. And the whole reason why I did not open it was really to protect my heart, because as a Christian, first of all, because I'm more Christian than I am black, white, or anything else. Right. As a Christian, first of all, and then secondly, as a pastor, I knew I could not watch that and allow that to infiltrate my heart, because I still have to represent the kingdom of God. For me, I think that's the example of what you're talking about, being able to recognize things. And that doesn't come easily. I think just my position has made me more aware of myself.
Right.
And aware of myself protects me because I have influence and I lead people. It protects me from making the wrong choice, which then can filtrate through my life, and then it'll affect how I lead. So I think I'm just trying to show the steps of I had to not watch it. To this day, I haven't. And it's all about protecting myself. It's my boundary.
Right. And that's really important. It's about protecting yourself from because for me, I'll ask myself, why do I need to watch this thing?
Oh, that's good.
Like, what is it going to do for me? And that all those videos, all they are going to do is upset me. So I can read the story to be in the know. I don't have to watch the videos because they're traumatic.
Yeah.
They're traumatic. You're traumatizing yourself. It's almost like continuing to go in a scary house or something. And you're scared. Like, why keep putting yourself through that? You know what's in there.
Me, raise your hand, because I don't watch them.
Like, why? Don't keep watching the scary movie if you know it's gonna scare you, and then you're not gonna be able to rest, and you're gonna be on edge, and you're gonna be upset. Like, you have to pick and choose. And some things we do just so that we have the knowledge, but sometimes I feel like at this point, if you've seen one of those videos, that's enough.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't need to see it to know that an innocent, unarmed Black man or woman was killed by the police. You don't have to keep watching it.
I really, something you just said really stuck with me, that when you're watching things, whether it's scary movies or watching, social media and social injustice and things of that nature, you are traumatizing yourself over and over. That really just stuck with me, what you said.
Yeah.
I think that we have a realization that when we are putting ourselves in positions, are not having boundaries, as you just said, we are traumatizing ourselves over and over again. What are the effects of us like being in situations or watching things that are really traumatizing ourselves?
Right. So I mean, when you're dealing with trauma, it just puts you in a state of hypervigilance and being always on edge. But if you're traumatized, you're gonna be in a negative mood all the time. Like you're
Negative
gonna carry
food.
that with you. You may even have some form of PTSD.
Wow.
If you depending on how much of it you're exposing yourself to.
Mhm.
And then the other piece to that I think people fail to realize is that you almost become desensitized to it.
Ooh,
So
talk about that. Talk about being desensitized. I think that's so important.
it's, if you expose yourself to something enough, then it doesn't even have the same effect on you because that's your body's way of keeping you safe.
Okay.
So if you're constantly watching these videos and everything, they may upset you some, but they may upset you less than the first one that you saw.
Gotcha. Okay.
You're continuously exposing yourself to this thing, and that can be a negative thing because then what happens when we all become desensitized to
So
human life?
almost like, because what I see when you're saying that is, it's almost like being in some form of an abusive relationship. If you keep putting yourself in it, you become desensitized to it, and actually you've convinced yourself, due to the desensitization, that that it's normal.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And I think that definitely will interfere with how you perceive yourself, because what happens when you start to think that these things that are happening in our community are normal?
Right.
Then what do? How do you respond? What does that say about how you feel about yourself?
Yeah. Talk to us about how, when we don't get therapy or recognize all these things that you're talking about, because you mentioned early on about the generational impact of that. So if I'm sitting at home as a mother or father and I have children, or maybe even maybe I may not necessarily have children, but I may have nieces and nephews, I have access to children, or I may lead children. Talk about how not setting up this example of talking about your feelings, talking about your emotions, recognizing when your triggers and things are not right. Talk about how that impacts the next generation and what that does to our children and ultimately our children's children, generationally speaking. Talk about that.
Right. So, I mean, it's just like with anything else, we pass down traditions. So, if we're passing down this tradition of like, we don't talk about our feelings, it's not okay for boys to cry. Boys be strong, girls can cry, it's okay. I think that if we pass down these things, then we just continue the cycle and it's not broken. But our children are always looking and watching and wanting to know, like, how do I handle this situation? They're sponges. So if you yourself are like, mama going to therapy, I'll be back. I know people that will not tell their kids that.
Wow.
They'll be in therapy, but they will keep it a secret. They
So why
won't
is such a shame? What's the shame in therapy?
Well, a part of our history is that a lot of times like I said, we deal with our struggles in silence. Like we don't talk about those things. But then also there's a history of judgment. So, it'll put you in a space where you like people are questioning your faith. Like, oh, you going to a therapist, what, you don't believe in God?
Yeah.
Um,
Okay. I love that part. As a pastor, stay right there, because Christianity and people of faith, this is a big issue. It is almost like if you say you're going to talk to somebody, or I feel stressed, or I'm under pressure, it's like you backslid and you call Jesus a
Right, right. They like, just pray about it, girl. Just sit down, pray.
Okay,
You're right.
there's no just pray about it, because even Jesus said faith without works is dead. So
Yeah, right.
okay, you can quote me. Pastor T said this: pray about it and go see somebody.
Absolutely.
Faith
Absolutely.
without works is dead.
Is dead.
Pray and go do something about it, because that's like asking God for a job and you just say, I'm gonna believe God for it, but you never apply.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, and the other thing is, like I had spoke to earlier, is that, this is my purpose. This is my calling. This is something that God gave me. And I know a lot of therapists that feel that way as well. And so he's giving you a tool.
Mm-hmm.
He's giving you something to use to assist you with the things that you're going through within your own life and your community, and working through things like this. And
therapy is a tool. I want them to put that in the chat, because I capture, the words that you're saying, and I want them to be out there, for as long as this message is out there on the broadcast. Therapy is a tool to help you overcome.
Right, absolutely. It's just a matter of sitting and talking to someone to help you kind of unravel things in your mind that may be jumbled and confusing, just to help you sort things out. It's not about replacing religion or replacing your faith. They work together. They work together. And it's just like anyone else that, like, you might be in therapy, you may take medication, you may be religious and go to church, you may also exercise and eat well. Those all impact us.
Right.
You may have a great support system. That's a good part of having a healthy life. So all of these things work together.
Absolutely.
It's not that, oh, well, if you do this, then you don't believe in this. You use all of these tools that are available to you to live your best life and function at your highest level. Because the thing about our community is that a lot of us will have what is referred to as like high functioning depression and high functioning anxiety. So
talk about that.
We're still doing everything that we're supposed to do. We're still taking care of our families. We're still going to work. We're still doing all these things. So it's not affecting our functioning in the traditional sense of what that looks like. But some of that comes from us not having any other choice.
Yeah. Oh, that's good.
And so it's this whole thing of you recognizing that, it's that person that tells you that you like, oh, she always strong. And then she tell you like, oh, I'm so overwhelmed. Are you like, you overwhelmed? Because she's doing all the stuff. As opposed to like some of the symptoms of like depression and anxiety is like, you're withdrawn, or you just sleep all the time, or things like that. And so you're still functioning in your day-to-day responsibilities. And so people may be less likely, including yourself, may be less likely to recognize that that's what's happening.
You're right. Especially, I think, I just thought about, in particular, as it relates to African-American women, because we know the statistics of the numbers of African-American men who are not in a home for whatever reason. And that's what I thought about when you said about high level or high functioning depression or mental illness issues, because you do what you got to do. You make it work. You do what you got to do, and you still function, because really you have no other choice. And I think a lot of, statistically speaking, it has been said, a lot of women who are in this position actually die prematurely, because you've taken on so much of what you should not have. You're just not built for it. So I am imploring and encouraging everyone on here, and as you talk to your family members, that we take the stigma of wanting to have therapy, or take the stigma of wanting to talk to someone away, and that it become more of a positive thing, a thing that is a tool to help us to maximize our lives and really live a longer, fuller life with true happiness, true joy, true peace, not just going through the emotions so we can look like we're happy. And so we want to take this, and that was really a big part of me doing this as an African American leader, because I want to take the stigma away, and really as a pastor, so that people will understand that there's no stigma associated with talking to someone and getting help. Because even in the church, as a pastor and leader, and I've been doing this over 30 years, people come to talk to you when they're just almost done with
Yeah.
stuff. And I often wonder, why didn't you come see me earlier? And really has a lot to do with shame.
Yes.
So it's okay for us to talk to someone. It's okay. There's nothing bad with therapy. It doesn't mean that you're not in faith. It doesn't mean that you're crazy. It doesn't mean, any of those things. It just means that you're aware of yourself enough to say, I'm going to go talk to someone, because clearly I'm having a hard time navigating this. And so I just need someone with an outside view to talk. I want, before we run out of time, I want to make sure that you tell everyone, and they'll type it in the chat as well. Tell everyone where they can reach out to you, because I am encouraging, people. Hey, I am giving Ivy the stamp of approval with my influence, that if you're on here and you want someone to talk to, reach out to her. So tell everybody about your services and how they can reach out to you.
Okay. So I provide individual therapy to anyone that needs it. I specialize in perinatal mental health, which means that if you are in the phase of pursuing motherhood, or you are a mom, or you're going through things, just a little bit of background about that. The statistic is 1 in 7 women, but the statistic in our community is 1 in 3 women will experience a perinatal mood or anxiety disorder. So that includes postpartum depression, postpartum anxiety, postpartum panic, postpartum bipolar disorder. There's several things, that postpartum PTSD, postpartum OCD. There are so many things to consider. And a lot of times people only know about postpartum depression. So then they'll say, well, I don't feel sad. But then they might have intrusive thoughts that just pop into their heads that scare them or worry them. And so it's important that we know that in our community, that's even a bigger issue. Right. But I can be reached through Facebook at Facebook or Instagram at Ivy Counseling and Wellness.
Okay.
If you want more information about anything, or if you want other platforms, I'm on Therapy for Black Girls or Psychology Today. And my email address is ivysias at ivycounselingandwellness.com. And the thing that I want to say is that even if I'm not the best fit for you, there is somebody that is. And I'm more than happy to help people get connected to resources. A lot of times people will call and they'll have specific things they're dealing with. And I'll say, like, you know what, I know somebody that will be perfect for that. I'll connect you. Or if it's an insurance issue or what have you, those are things for you to really definitely consider. But I'm more than happy to connect you, if I can, to somebody in our community. And there are Black therapists in our community willing to help that are amazing. And also allies. I think it's important to say that as well. We have a lot of allies in our community that are also ready and willing to assist any way they can. And I think that this is a journey that we're on, whether we're talking about COVID or these racial injustices, that we have to recognize that in order for us to get through them, we have to do it together and collectively.
I really want the women on here to really share with the men in their lives. Because of course we know that with this thing with racial injustice and systemic racism and stuff like that, we know that women are affected as well. So that's not to dismiss that. But overwhelmingly, the African American males experience in this country and their acceptance in this country, we know now, we're all heightened to and aware of it. I really want the women on this in this chat to really encourage the men in their lives to talk to someone, because I really believe we have a lot of men at this time, and I really would say both Caucasian and African American, dealing with a lot of stuff right now, but even more African American men. I really would encourage you to get your brothers, your husbands, your sons, your boos, your bays, whatever. Get them into therapy to talk to someone, because what we do know is that when you don't talk to someone and a trigger is hit, you react instead of respond appropriately to things. So I am really encouraging you to have them. I know my son, he posted it here already. He has a therapist, and he's is the best thing that has happened in his life. And there are many times that children, our spouses, our brothers, or whatever, family members can't talk to another family member about some of the things they're experiencing. Hey, I am all for it. Talk to the men in your life, so that they can talk to someone who can really help them to maximize. That's loving somebody. That's
right. Absolutely. And watch your words. I think that is something we have to remind ourselves of. We make jokes about mental health. Mm-hmm. We talk about you being weak if you have to get help and things like that. And so if someone is suffering around you and they hear these things and you're not being careful about the words that you're speaking, mm-hmm. they're not going to come to you for support, and they will probably be less likely to go and get support outside as well. Right. And so we have to be careful with that. And then also be honest about speak your truth. I had a therapy session at 9 a.m. today, right before this. Right. I see my counselor regularly. I love her to death. She is one of the people I refer people to when I need to. And I'm very proud to say that, because therapy has been very beneficial in my life. And I believe that if more of us said that when we go and we're not hiding it, or glorifying the fact that we, I don't need no help or whatever, I think that more people will be likely to say something and speak up. So,
and I think that people need to know and understand that everybody, you cannot get through life without experiencing some type of trauma.
Absolutely.
Everybody in life, it's life. Life will fail you at moments. You know what I'm saying? So you can't get through life without experiencing some type of trauma. So that mindset, that figment of our imagination that we are the only ones.
Yeah.
No, I'm the only one that's tripping. Honey, you are not the only one that's tripping. You brought up postpartum. I remember when I had my daughter, it made me think about this, because I was living in Los Angeles at the time, and my son was 3. My son was very hyper, had always been hyper, very smart, highly intelligent, and, high functioning, but he was hyper all over the place. And I was tired for probably the first 5 years of his life. I was tired. I was an at-home mom. I was just always on the go. And I didn't have any family. We lived in Los Angeles. I didn't have any family to, do anything with. So it was just he and I, for most of the day. And then, my God, I get pregnant. And now 3 years later, I have a daughter. And I remember after having my daughter, I had postpartum.
Yeah.
And back then, we didn't really know what it was. I just know that, thank God for my relationship with God, I knew something was off, something was wrong. And I picked up the phone and I called my husband one day. He was at work and I was crying, and I put my daughter down in the bed and I walked away because I felt like I was going to hurt her. And I called my husband and I said, you got to come home. You got to come get her. You got to come get me. And I realized, and I thank God for a husband who took me to the doctor, and he was like, something's not right, And so I realized it was okay way back then. That stuff is real. And I'm sharing that so that people will know that these are real incidents in life where you go through trauma, and you gotta know how to respond to that. Because I think that if I didn't have a husband that loved me, he didn't understand. All he knew is like, something ain't right. So we're gonna get help. And he was like, do I have to be concerned about you, or do I have to be concerned about leaving my kids with you? I was like, you do need to be concerned, because I'm being honest. I don't know what I might do. So you do need to be concerned. But we were able to work it out. And I think about, if I hadn't been honest, if I felt some shame, if my relationship with my husband had made me feel like I couldn't say that to him, what would have happened?
Right. Right. And that's why it's so important to have good supports around you, somebody that you can say, hey, something's off.
Right.
One of the things that when I was going through with my experience, I found a podcast. It's called Mom and Mind. I highly recommend it.
Mom
Uh,
and Mind. Okay.
Mom and Mind.
Okay.
Um, and the person that does the podcast, Dr. Kat, her story was so similar to what I was experiencing that I was like, oh my God, this woman is in my house. Um, and I used that as a tool to talk to my family about what I was feeling.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't until after that that I realized I probably had a mild case of postpartum PTSD with my son. He was a NICU baby.
Okay.
So it's a lot of things and factors to consider, but it's so important to have supports and people that you can be real with that
Mhm.
won't dismiss how you're feeling, that
Good.
will say like, well, what do you need? Like, how can I help you?
Mhm.
Um, let's go talk to somebody. Let's talk to a professional. The other thing is that if you have a professional that you talk to and they dismiss you, you know you better than anybody else.
Right.
Don't just stop there. Keep trying, keep fighting, keep reaching out for support.
That's
That was my experience. My doctor told me that I was too high functioning to have postpartum depression.
Oh wow.
And, and she was like, those are women that don't get out of bed and don't do this, but that goes back to that's not the nature of our community.
Right. I got you.
So
I
I
got you.
was dressed and I was taking care of my kids, but I
And you
felt
can be doing all of that and still have an issue that you need help with. And I think it's important to note that because I think we assume that we can't afford it. I think
bad.
that we should not make those assumptions. You should reach out to your insurance company to see what's available to you. You should be an advocate for yourself. You should not
Absolutely.
assume that counseling financially is out of your reach. Because
Absolutely.
I've come to discover that counseling, especially in our community, is very much within people's reach.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
and you should invest in your own well-being, in your own emotional health, in your own spiritual health, in your own physical health. You should be the first person to invest in it. So that means, this day and age with the age of the internet, you don't even need cable. And most people are paying like $200 a month for cable. You can get at least once a month therapy in many cases for less than $200 a month.
Right.
You got to
Right.
make a choice to preserve yourself.
Right. You have to make your well-being and your mental health a priority all around. That means, like we talked about, setting those boundaries. That means recognizing, don't talk yourself out of therapy before you reach out. There
Gotcha.
are people that have called and I only take Blue Cross Blue Shield. They have a different insurance, but I'll get you connected. It's okay. Like, we'll find somebody that takes it. We'll find somebody that offers a sliding scale where they might be able to make it more affordable for you. But then sometimes it just takes a matter of saying, I'm going to do this no matter what. Because if it was another kind of struggle for you, if it was diabetes or high blood pressure or cancer or something like that, would you say to yourself, I'm not going to pay for it. I can't afford that. Or
No,
would you fight for
yeah.
yourself to be well?
You would
You're
hightail it to the doctor and do whatever you had to do.
those prescriptions and do whatever you need to do to be well so you can feel better. And your mental health is no different.
Yeah, because and we really have to see that because your mental health is what allows you to function in life at the level that you need to function in life. So it's really, really, really important. Before we have to go, we have about 5 minutes. This has been so good, Ivy. Again, thank you so much for coming on. I want to find out, do we have any questions? You can type your questions in the chat. Here it is that you have someone who has a calling to do this and who wants your well-being. And so while we're waiting to see if anyone has any questions, I just want to encourage you to make sure that you reach out if you're feeling some kind of way about something. If Ivy has talked about something today that says, okay, that's me, I recognize something's going on, I want you to reach out and not be ashamed. I see someone put in the chat, there are some places that we do it that will do that will provide therapy for free depending on the trauma. And really in our nation with what's going on now, there are really a lot of free services, a lot of ways that there are government agencies and other agencies that are helping you, are helping you with financial assistance with these types of things. What I do know also too, a lot of people don't know, Ivy, on their jobs offer therapy.
like EAP programs. There are several different types of things in our community. One resource that's a good resource is the Family Tree.
Okay.
They provide a lot of stuff that's related to the family as a whole, such as like issues with parenting and how to function in if you have a divorced family or a separated family for some reason. They also give away things. They have a community baby shower. And then there's so many resources available. So don't count yourself out. Just you have to find it. There also are resources and programs that are like Taraji P. Henson has one where she offers services for payment for therapy for Black people.
Wow.
And so there are several others like that. So sometimes it takes a little legwork, but sometimes it takes us being the support. So if I am the one struggling and I'm telling you that, then you help me find the resources, because I may not be in a space where I can do it on my own. And so we have to be a part of the village. We have to take care of each other.
Ivy, someone asked a question. They said, what would you say to a man to convince him to get therapy?
That's a good question. Well, I mean, kind of what I said already, I would reiterate it. Like if it was any other thing, if it was any other medical condition, would you get help? And for men, sometimes the answer to that is still no. But the other thing I would say is that the way that you take care of yourself will impact your family as a whole. And even though we are high functioning with these things, I would say that if you're high functioning with everything that you're carrying, think about how much better you'll function once you're able to let that go.
Wow. That's a revelation.
So that's kind of what, but I do find that for men, they need other men to give them the push. They need to know that they have friends that will support them in their journey to mental wellness. And so, a lot of times I want to give them that encouragement and that push, but ultimately I think they need it from other men that are willing to say, I go to therapy. Yeah. I love it. You want my therapist number?
Right.
I think we're a little more likely to do that as women than men are. And so men need other men.
I think that now you put something in my brain, because I'm all about the solution. So now I'm like, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to get Pastor Derek and we're going to get, a group of men, and we're going to do something. And I'll need your help with that. We can connect to a male therapist and get these men in a room or in some forum, because men will encourage other men. That's why I told, typically with stuff like this, the women are going to jump on. And that's why I made a point to say to all the women that are on, make sure that you tag a man, you know, because they may even ignore your tag, but at some point they're going to go back and watch it. You know what I'm saying? And
I know some amazing Black male therapists in our community that I can help you connect to if you feel like you want to connect to a male therapist.
Okay.
And one of them is Leon Winters. If you would like to look him up, he's an amazing therapist and one of the leaders in therapy in our community. And I speak very highly of him. So
Leon Winters, I'm so thankful for this. And I'm really thinking about I want to have some type of mental awareness day that targets both male and female. And so listen, I'm excited about it because I really believe that this is an answer for our community, and it's an answer for people in our community, really elevating their lives and really understanding the value of their own life, because I believe systemically speaking, that's stuff that we've gotten generationally, just from what has happened in our nation. We don't value ourselves, and that's why we make investments in ourselves. So mental health is an investment in yourself.
It is.
We're just trying to survive, but God didn't give you life to survive. He wants you to thrive.
Right.
That's what therapy does. It allows you to thrive. Thank you so much for coming on the broadcast.
Thank you for having me.
This has really been a blessing. I'm looking at the chat. This one lady, she said, there are so many people that need to hear this information. People are worried about what others will say while life is passing them by. Somebody else said, having other men highlight the symptoms. Hers went away, but I saw her say something about having other other men, I'm trying to get it to show me, but it says something about having other men highlight the symptoms will help men to be to
Right.
and I believe that a woman has to understand the power of her influence. You
Yes.
have a man in your life, a son, a brother, a husband. You have any man in your life, your cousin them, as we say in this community. You have a man in your life, you need to go sit down and have a conversation with them, especially if you can see some stuff. Because I believe oftentimes the root of a lot of the problem, I don't believe people are just created to just do bad things because they want to do bad things. And, you know, in our community, we'll get that stigma, especially with young African-American men. I think that these people are in a large degree, many of them have experienced traumas or things in life that they don't know how to deal with. So what do? You react to things and you don't know how to function in life. And we, as I was saying, as women, we have the power of influence when it comes to a man's life. And we have to remember that, because if we go all the way back to the Bible, if Eve can get Adam to submit to her and throw away the entire kingdom and the paradise of Eden and all the dominion that God has given us, what kind of influence do we have over the men in our lives?
Right.
We need to know how to use it for their betterment.
Right.
And so we need to talk to the men in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
And men remember to be that voice for these younger generations.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about your feelings. Tell them it's okay to cry.
Mm-hmm.
Don't put out these vibes of like this toxic masculinity that keeps people in the shadows and hiding and suffering in silence, because that's killing our community. Yeah. And it's breaking our fathers, it's breaking our mothers, and we need to make sure that we're strong as a whole. And the only way to do that is if we really be honest and whole and real about what really life is like.
Yeah, this has been so good. We could go on and on and on. And I'm telling you, people are enjoying this. I know I'm going to hear a whole lot about this. And I've been just from the comments. And, you know, before we go, I really just want to pray for the people on here and really the people that will see this at a later time. And I think I'm going to specifically target really men and, you know, having a heart to open up to really just get the help and the assistance and just talk to somebody. So, Father, I thank you, first of all, for Ivy, for her willingness to come on and to share with the community of people that I have influence over and that follow me on social media. I thank you for her really coming on and sharing her heart. And so as a result, you know, Father, for everything she's put out, I thank you that you will restore to her and back to her life. Increase her business, Father, even to the degree that she's going to have to hire more therapists to assist her. And so, Father, your word says, whatever a man sows, that will he also reap. So increase her and her family. We declare it to be so in Jesus' name. Now, Father, we pray for everyone who's on the broadcast, as well as everyone who will hear this. We thank you, God, that they now have some tools to be able to reach out and that they would seek out assistance and therapy as a tool to fulfillment in their own lives. We pray for men in our lives that their hearts and their minds will view and see therapy different, God, and so that we can be a help to one another in this community and ultimately to people in the world. So we thank you for it and we give you the glory for it. We thank you that we've been a blessing today. And Father, we give you glory, honor, and praise for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Ivy. Thank you all for joining. Someone said being the mental health workforce, this is so crucial. This is awesome. Amen, Summer. And so thank you all again for joining. Thank you for being on. Ivy, we're going to let you go. You've been such
Thank you for having me.
And we will be talking soon, girl. Just watch you.
Sure.
Grow up. Let me tell you, you better get ready. You need to figure out who you're going to hire.
Oh, goodness.
Love you. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Bye.
You too.
Thank you all so much for joining us, guys. I really appreciate you all for joining us. This has been the first pop-up of the summer. I can just tell it's been a blessing to you guys. Share, share, share. Talk about it, talk about it, talk about it, because that's the way we get the information out to our community. That's the way we funnel it to our community, because you know, at Lift City Church, we believe in whole life prosperity. We believe in faith, family, finances, fellowship. We want to make sure that everything, every part of you is good. That is spiritually, that is emotionally, that is physically. We want to make sure that you are good. So Thank you for joining us today. They've already put up on the screen. If you choose to give today to sow something because this has been a blessing to you, just one thing I need you to remember, we are Lift City Church. So if you're mailing anything in or making out any checks, you need to make it out to Lift City Church. I'm excited about Sunday again. Need to see you. We are going back to the basics. You don't want to miss Sunday's message. So share, grab your family, gather around. It's going to be an awesome message. Thank you all again for tuning in. God bless you all. Happy Friday and have an awesome weekend. See you soon.